Good morning. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I'm Don Irvine once again. All right. Hope you're having a great Monday and had a great long New Year's weekend. All right. So we're now, I'd say, officially past the holiday season, and everybody should be getting ready to go back to work. Maybe some of you are already at your desks virtually or otherwise at this hour. Anyway, in the news, so we have one of the big blow-ups, dust-ups, whatever controversies of the day from yesterday. Over the weekend was this release of about 4 minutes of what was said to be an hour-long call between President Trump and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, and to which what we are hearing on the audio says, we have hearing Trump say that he's looking for 11,780 votes, and he is urging Raffensperger to find those votes and to overturn the election. And he said, also saying that everybody knows it's a fraud, and that Trump really won the election. This has created yet another piece in more furor within the party as well as the political realm in terms of what exactly is going on here. And did President Trump, is that the full context? Remember, we don't have the full hour right now. But if you look at it from this stage, right, at this point in time, just for the 4 minutes, if you've evaluated on that, yeah, I think you could legitimately say, it's like, what the heck is President Trump doing? On the other hand, until we get the rest of the tape, I'm not sure we know exactly what the whole context of the conversation was. But Raffensperger and Trump, they did have some Twitter exchanges yesterday, for which Raffensperger told Trump that this was not what he had said to him on the phone, and denied that. So, President Trump has made a very big deal about going after Georgia Governor Brian Kemp and Raffensperger over the election results in Georgia. Are there problems? Yeah, I mean, the election system is not perfect. It never was going to be perfect, right? But at some point in time, you have to draw the line and say, look, this is everything that they've pointed to. Every single legal case, basically, that they have thrown out there, whether or not it's Georgia, Pennsylvania, or wherever, has failed. Terrible legal teams, terrible legal arguments, because there's been a lack of evidence there. There are people out there that are going to hold forth and stay true to President Trump, and that's fine. That is their prerogative and their right to do that if that's what they so choose to do. But here we have, coming up here on Wednesday, we have the certification will take place with Vice President Trump overseeing this, and there will be objections. There are going to be objections by the House. There's going to be now apparently at least about a dozen senators that are joining in on the fray. I don't think this is going to change the results. It's too late. It's time to move on here. I know a lot of conservatives say, no, that's the wrong thing to do, and that in and of itself is a terrible thing to say. But what's going to happen here? What happens if somebody finds a way to muck up the system? What does that do to our confidence in the electoral system? I mean, it's already kind of shaken anyway, but this is just total chaos and anarchy at this point in time by overturning this election at this stage, after going through all these legal maneuvers that have basically failed. And then to throw it into this kind of chaotic situation, I don't see the point of doing this at all, right? The bigger prize here really is the Senate. The Georgia runoff, which will, the election takes place tomorrow, final day. There's already been early voting, mail-in voting, that type of thing. We've had over 3 million votes being cast, mostly by Democrat ballots, which is kind of par for the course on the early stuff. Republicans tend to come out on the day of, so they need a huge, huge push tomorrow to offset that early Democrat ballot lead. And I'm saying, I think, if you look at the ballots coming in by party, you're going to get party line votes. This is not going to be split decisions, and people aren't going to probably cross party lines very much. So it's, 99% of the people voting are going to vote the party line, and they're going to vote for both candidates on either side. So it will be a tight race. Do the Democrats have a chance of capturing the Senate? Absolutely. They get these 2 wins tomorrow, right? They win 2 seats. Kamala Harris will then be deciding all the votes going forward in the Senate to tie break, and it's Joe Biden's agenda, and that's a problem. However, if the Republicans win both seats, it's basically an either or. It's not likely to go 1-1. It's going to be either a 50-50 split or a 52-48 split in the Senate. That's pretty much the options we have here, and not 51-49. I think people aren't going to be dividing their loyalties here in this election. So with that, the Biden agenda goes forward at 50-50. The Biden agenda gets stopped largely at 52-48. And then we get something that we can actually stick, our heads into here and figure this out. I've got a comment here. Jimmy Swaggart. I didn't know Jimmy Swaggart was still around. I'm sorry about that, but I just didn't know. It'll be an interesting thing to see how this all turns out. This is a fascinating time in our history to see how the election results will finally play out here. We have learned a lot from people in terms of how the process is, in terms of the challenges that we can have, the legality of certain things that we can have. It will set forth, for future elections, presidential and non-presidential, in terms of how votes are cast and how things are going. I think at the very least we're going to see, more push towards election reform and to try to secure the election to a better state. And we've got to get rid of this mail-in balloting thing, because this is just an utter disaster. That's where a majority of the fraud and the problems and the lack of control come from, right, folks? So we have to figure out how to deal with that going forward. But anyway, we will see. This is going to be the make or break week finally. I thought we were done with this, but we are not done with this by any stretch of the imagination. You can see the Republicans rising up. It's going to be an interesting day. In D.C. here, Muriel Bowser has said to people to warn them to stay away from D.C. for the most part, because they're closing up a whole bunch of streets because they're expecting a huge number of pro-Trump people to protest this thing. This is one of the more amazing things to me, is that, we have a lot of people coming in from all over the country, Trump supporters that'll be there, that are coming in for this vote. This is unheard of. They are coming in. They're going to be ready to protest, and they want to make their point heard out there. And that is the First Amendment. That is free speech. The liberals are hating it, but this is their right. The liberals have done the same thing in terms of demonstrating against a lot of other things, not against the election per se, but they have done these things. And so we've seen lots of protests this past year. And we're starting off 2021 with a very early protest in favor of the Trump campaign and Trump support. So stay tuned. We'll have more to report as these things develop, right? So Nancy, she won her fourth term as a House Speaker. So and it wasn't an easy victory in the sense of, it was a narrow victory because she's got a very narrow majority. The squad did stand behind her, but there were three Democrats that voted present. So their votes, that's how they're recorded. They didn't vote for her. They just voted present. And then there was a couple others, I guess, that voted for other people. There was a vote for Hakeem Jeffries. And so, Kevin McCarthy wound up with all Republican support, and Nancy Pelosi lost a few Democrats, but she still had enough of a margin to win. But it's said that this is going to be her last hurrah, in the sense that she is not going to, if the Democrats retain control of Congress in 2022, that she will not stand for re-election in 2023 for House Speaker. And maybe that'll finally clear the way for younger people in the Democrat Party to actually succeed to the throne as such and move up the ladder. One of the problems of the Democrats that for years has been that their House leadership is filled with a lot of older white people. Jim Clyburn is up there, but he's old. He's an older black representative. What that will lead to, we don't know what 2022 will hold, but right now the momentum is in the Republicans' favor. Plus it'll be the first election after redistricting, and we're already seeing the redistricting effects. If you look at the initial census figures, you're seeing right now that New York is going to lose a seat, at least one seat, maybe two. Depends on how it turns out in Alabama, because Alabama could lose a seat, and then New York will lose one. West Virginia will lose one seat. It's a red state, but it's losing population. But California is up to lose a seat, Illinois, some things like that, while Texas could gain a couple of seats and Florida gain 2 or 3 seats as well. And with Republicans in control in those states, that will likely lead to more Republican gains and put the Republicans in a pretty favorable map in 2022. They came a heck of a lot closer than I thought. I didn't think they had a shot at doing what they've done, in 2020 during that election, but they surprised the heck out of me, and now they're just within spitting distance of retaking the House. And that would, look at it this way: if Biden gets, the Democrats get to the 50-50 split, after the election, right? The Georgia Senate runoff. They've got 2 years. If we can recapture the House, then then legislation will be hard to get out of there, which is where the spending authorization is, and that'll be another way to gum up the works for the rest of Biden's term. So it's possible. Here's a scenario. Think about this: Republicans control the Senate for 2 years. They might lose the Senate in 2020. I don't know. I mean, anything is possible in this crazy world, right? But then they would regain the House. The effect, basically is once again to neutralize the Biden agenda. So it's keep pushing forward. Do not give up. Never ever give up on this battle. This is a battle for the soul of our nation, for our future. Biden wants to present this happy thing, but hey, it's not necessarily going to be that way, is it? He's also talking about the vaccines. The vaccine rollout. I mean, the vaccines are getting out there. Over 4 million people have been vaccinated, but it's left up to the states to figure out how to get their people vaccinated and create the priority. First responders, people in nursing homes, things like that, people who are more susceptible, the older population. But there have been a few issues. I mean, there was an issue in D.C., a grocery store in D.C., the Giant food store. They actually, or I guess maybe it was a Safeway, actually. Now I heard a story about Giant this morning. Safeway, they had to throw away a couple of doses because, there's a limited shelf life once it is out. It's not refrigerated. And they got to the end of the day and they had given 28 out of 30 vaccines and had to throw the other 2 away. Because there was no one left on their priority list that was there. Now, there was a story yesterday that the Giant food and also in DC, what they did is that they got down to 10 minutes before closing, and they asked a couple of guys who were there doing some last minute shopping to say, did you want the vaccine? So they got the vaccine, and so no vaccines were wasted. The DC Public Health Services said that they're loosening up that, if it gets down to that kind of point, the stores, these pharmacists, they should have the option. They now have the option to give it to whoever wants it, so it doesn't get thrown away. Don't blame the administration, in my view, for the rollout in terms of why there are long lines or some of these mix-up. The states are in charge of figuring this out, and if they're not ready for it, that's something that they have to figure this out and do. I don't know when my turn will come, but as a person who generally has never, I don't think I could have ever had the flu shot. Not saying I haven't had the flu, but I've never had a flu shot. I will be there because I do think that the threat of COVID and the way it has spread is far more dangerous to me than the flu has been. We're just seeing this, and it's not going away anytime soon. And we need to get people vaccinated so we can actually get a handle of this, control this. Where the CDC, they say we're waiting for another, episode, not more spread after all this holiday travel. Who knows? They could be right. I don't know. I mean, I still think there are a lot of crazy rules out there, the restrictions on religious institutions that people can gather. If you cannot prove that businesses, religious establishments, whatever, are actually creating, the spread or cause of majority of the spread, then they shouldn't be forced to be limited to how many people can go and attend a worship service, how many people can go and eat food inside, dine inside, or go inside to buy goods and services and whatnot. But that's the way it is that they get tarred with one broad brush here, is that they, these government officials, a lot of them who are Democrats, not all, but a lot of them are, they shut this down without really thinking about the effect on the businesses, because what do? They're looking to Washington. They're looking to us as taxpayers to bail all of these guys out. We really don't have limitless funds. I mean, we can keep printing money. We can keep giving this money away. We can keep giving the stimulus money away. But realistically, it's not being given to the people who need it. The $600 per person, stimulus check that's going out, and for a lot of people have already received their stimulus money. It's going to a lot of middle-class people who don't need it. They're going to park it away and save it. The idea behind this was to help people and then to prime the pump of the economy and to get people to spend it. But the people I've seen, the people I've talked to, none of them are planning on spending any of it. Mine, when it comes in, will be used to pay bills, but not stimulate the economy. Pay up, bills that are coming up on my radar, like my dentist and my WSSC, my annual water sewer charge link up that I have to pay, for another 9 or 10 years, I think, before it finally gets paid off. That type of thing. That is not going to prime the pump one bit. I'll take the money, But I know that I'm not the guy who's going to be paying for all of this excess at the end. But the people who really need it, who could spend it, they're not really getting it. They're going to get a look. They're going to get this payment, but it'll help them catch up on bills, but it really won't help them get out of debt and go forward. We're not. The policy prescription here is just not targeted correctly. It's not really well thought out, and could be better done in better ways. So anyway, with that, so also Nancy Pelosi. Another thing about her too, I need to say, is that she's also there's a resolution out there now for House rules, that all House rules going forward will be now stripped of gender specificity, right? So you can't say mother, father, brother, sister, uncle, aunt. You have to say parent and child and things like that. So they want to honor all gender identities. Okay, this is part of the craziness of where this world is going. I'd say if it was 2020, this would be so 2020. And I guess maybe it was introduced in 2020. I have to look exactly when this first thing popped up, but close enough, right, to show that just how our world continues to be a little bit on the insane side when it comes to this. The politically correct, the speech police, the thought police, they're still out there. You may not think they're there, but they're there. And that's about it, I think, for today. I mean, there's plenty of things to talk about. Lots of Republicans down there in Georgia doing grassroots efforts to bring out the vote for Republicans in Georgia. It'll be a while. I don't know. I don't suspect that we will really know for sure this week who's won the runoff elections. I think that because of the number of votes that have to be counted that are mail-in and early balloting, we'll get some of those the first night, but then it's all the other ballots. So it may take a few days, maybe it takes up to a week or so before we get a firm idea of who are going to be the senators from Georgia. Will it still be Loeffler and Perdue, or will it be Warnock and Ossoff? We will wait and see, but which side of the road I stand on this one. All right, everyone, thanks a lot for joining me. Remember to please stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America, and we'll see you on Wednesday with Brian.